Welcome to the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders at B2B services, tech, and SaaS companies to learn the systems and processes they've used to create success for their business. We'll also learn from marketing and sales experts to provide insights to help you grow your business. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and the podcast is brought to you by Modern Revenue Strategies and their 10x ROI B2B growth guarantee. Schedule a free diagnostic call to learn the fastest path to double your B2B revenues in just 90 days. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders at early stage B2B services, tech, and SaaS companies to learn the systems and processes they've used to create success for their business. We also speak with marketing and sales experts who have built countless businesses through the strategies and tactics for success. And today, I'm very excited to welcome one of those experts. Ian Chamandy has been an entrepreneur all his life. He's a public speaker. He wrote a book about his craft called Why Should I Choose You? Answering the most important question in business in 7 words or less. He's subject matter expert in the field of purpose, and in that role, he's the founder of a company called Blueprint that helps businesses define their purpose in 7 words or less, and then use that to design how the company operates and communicates. He has a degree in social psychology from the University of Waterloo, and after graduation, had a variety of different careers, including marketing communications, information technology, television, and eventually wound up where he is now, which is defining purpose at the front end of his clients' strategic planning processes. So, Ian, thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So, when we were chatting a little bit before the show, we were talking about how purpose and sort of defining those 7 words can be really strategic in how it helps companies grow, both from a marketing as well as a sales perspective. Talk to me a little bit about what you have seen in your experience working with B2B companies and sort of defining those 7 words and how that plays such a strategic role in growth.
Well, it's all strategy. And strategy is a bit of a lost art in business today. I see even the biggest companies, I see their strategy plans, and I look at it and I say, that's not strategy, that's tactics, that's an action plan. And the challenge with that is that, and this is especially true for small businesses, where the planning cycle is not nearly as formal, so it's a bit more seat of your pants, is that it ends up being a bit like throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And if you're a big company, maybe you can afford to do that. Right. But if you're a small business, you can't afford that inefficiency. You don't have that kind of fat in your budget that you can, have only one strand out of 100 stick to the wall. So I want to take you back to the beginning of my career. I was a copywriter. And I had no business being a copywriter, but I was a copywriter. And the reason I say I had no business being it is because when I started writing copy, I would read it and I'd say, oh my God, this is like insipid. This is cliche-driven advertising. This is everything that I hate about. I'm writing everything that I hate about advertising.
Right.
And I looked at what I was writing and I said, it's just not true to the product or the service or the brand. So I made this sign and it just said, is that true? And I put it up on the wall behind my typewriter.
Right.
And so I had to constantly look at that. It didn't make my writing any better because I didn't have a basis for understanding who the brand or the product or the service was at its core, at its very essence. What is this about? Right? So as my career progressed and I got more into formal strategy, and I ended up about 20 years ago starting a business with my partner, who sadly died a few years ago. But we had the same passion, and that was for setting the direction of an organization. And we both sort of thought we were kind of creative. So we figured we were sort of like management consultants, but more creative. And that was, that was the unique combination. And the more Ken and I talked about the fact that strategy just doesn't seem to work, we then said, well, actually, what is strategy, right? Everybody talks about strategy, but ask someone to define what it is, and you'll just get like a word salad. And to us, traditional strategy was simply had two elements to it. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? And the where are you going part is the strategy, and the how are you going to get there is the action plan that realizes it. And so it's a two-step process. But what we realized is that where are you going and how are you going to get there should be steps 2 and 3 in a process that starts with the question, who are you? Because if your second question is, where are you going? Isn't that dependent on who you are? Like, think of yourself going on a vacation, right? And you've got two choices. You can go to Paris, or you can go to Machu Picchu in Peru.
Okay.
Well, if you're the kind of person who loves fine dining and is a foodie and, likes everything just so, and satin sheets and all of that stuff, hiking up 6 days to Machu Picchu is not you.
Right.
Right? But if you're the kind of person who likes the effort and the woodsiness and the naturalness of climbing up to Machu Picchu, Paris is going to seem prissy.
Sure.
Right? So you need to know who you are before you figure out where you're going and how you're going to get there. And when you think of strategy like that, as those 3 questions, who are you, where are you going, and how are you going to get there? The question, everything is predicated on the question, who are you?
That's
right. Because you're going to completely mess up. I call it the 5-degree rule, right? In golf, you hit the ball. If you're off by 5 degrees when you hit the ball off the tee, you're going to be off by 45 degrees by the time you're a couple miles down the road.
That's right.
It's the same in trying to figure out how to grow your business. The most important question you can ask about your business is, who are you? Right? Who are you as an organization? I'll give you an example. This guy came to us and he does retail shelving. His company does retail shelving, right? Home Depot builds a box. They go in, they put up all the rack shelving. And when they're done, the store opens. And I had breakfast with him, and he's saying to me, I know there's a magic to my company. I know that we are better than our competitors, but every time I go to open my mouth to talk about it, it sounds so generic, so banal, so like anything else, anything any of my competitors could say. And most companies are in the same boat. They share the same frustration. And if you don't think your company has that frustration, talk to your salespeople. They'll tell you. So I said to John, he said, I know there's a magic to my company, but I sound so banal. I said to John, it's because you don't know what business you're in. And he said, to his credit, he said, you're right. I don't know what business I'm in. Now, he knows he's in the business of retail shelving, in the category of retail shelving, but he doesn't know in that sandbox what his unique spot is. And that's why everything that comes out of his mouth sounds generic, because it's not him. He doesn't know who he is, or he doesn't know who his company is. So he's not speaking about, the company. And it's sort of like going back to throwing spaghetti against the wall. Instead of throwing spaghetti against the wall, you're throwing words against the wall. And some of them are landing and some of them aren't. You don't know which ones are landing because that person's not telling you.
Right.
So knowing who you are is is the key to knowing everything else about your business. So I'm going to tell you the rest of this story, and then I'll go back and I'll explain why.
Sure.
So John decided to do a blueprint. That's the process that we put our clients through. And just as an aside, a blueprint involved the creating of the draft of the blueprint is the CEO and up to 3 other key decision makers in the organization. It has to be the CEO. The future of the company is the CEO's responsibility. And we have 10 sessions of 2 hours each on Zoom. And we have, and the first thing that we do is we come up with this definition of who you are, right? And so we talk. And where the conversation got interesting was when they had talked about how they had been in business for 3 generations, not 3 decades, 3 generations. And because of that longevity, they had developed techniques and processes and systems and procedures that enabled them to get finished significantly faster. So you can imagine if they get a Home Depot done a month faster than their competitors, store opens a month sooner, and that's like, you know, that's a month of retail sales that they did not anticipate.
Yeah.
And that's like, I believe, about $2 million a week at Home Depot, and that's real money in my world.
Sure.
So as we're having this conversation about getting finished faster, one of his VPs, as a joke, says, you know, on our signs where it says opening soon, I want ours to say opening sooner. And I just went, that is brilliant. That is absolutely brilliant. In 2 words, he summed up what this company was all about. Its total focus was on opening sooner. I'll say this a little differently. What made this company uniquely remarkable was the ability to open sooner. So really, when you're defining, remember I said strategy is who are you, where are you going, how are you going to get there? The who are you question is really what, you know, who are you? When you hear who are you, it's like, oh, I get how that's conceptually a good thing, but I don't see the tangibility of it. I hear that. But when who are you ends up being the definition of the one thing at your root, at your essence, that makes you as a company uniquely remarkable, all of a sudden, the tangibility and the importance of this 7 words or less comes into focus.
Yeah.
Because now it's the one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, that guides everything that you do and say from that point on. And you know, when I say everything you do and say, those are colloquialisms for your branding, your marketing, your sales, your investor relations, employee relations, board relations on the communication side, and then your corporate structure, your manufacturing plan, your product development plan, your R&D plan, your inventory, your operations, your, you know, all of this stuff on your everything you do side. So when you know what makes you uniquely remarkable, especially if you can express it, well, you have to express it in a short phrase. Because if you don't, it'll be 10 things that make you uniquely remarkable before you know it. And now you're just back into generically. And it's always one thing, always one thing. When we did this company, okay, oh, no, I can't tell you that. That's the secret question in the blueprint. I can't reveal that. So, gotcha. But now this company knows that what makes it uniquely remarkable at its core is opening sooner. And so to me, knowing what makes an organization uniquely remarkable is the single most important strategic asset that an organization has. And I defy anybody. Nobody has been able to say to me, no, this is more important. as a strategic asset
Right.
because it guides everything that you do and say. And um, and so the CEO, we have a whole conversation about this. We're filling out the blueprint, and at one point, the CEO says to me, "What happens when all our competitors start copying us, and they start getting finished faster? What do we do next?" Well, if I was a management consultant, I would say something to the effect of, I wouldn't really say this, but if essentially I'd be saying, well, let's throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. But what I said to John is, you need to figure out new ways to get finished even faster. That's your focus, right?
Because
And
that's the core of who they are. And so
the core of
the
who you are.
business strategy flows from that sort of definition of who they are.
Everything.
That where they're going
everything
still is the same place. And then the how they get there is what changes sort of quarter in, quarter out as they develop new strategies and tactics.
Exactly. And so here's what a 7 words or less statement as a strategy does for you that's different than a traditional strategy, because a traditional strategy tends to be pretty linear. And you've probably heard people say, fail to plan, plan to fail.
Sure.
So, if you don't fail to plan, you do your plan, then it tends to be a linear thing, like the line down the middle of the road. And you've got to try, as cars are zipping by, as market conditions are buffeting you, you've got to try and stay on that line. That's an impossible task. And it's also an unreasonable task in trying to grow your company. What that opening sooner does, or the definition of what makes you uniquely remarkable does, is it creates guardrails on either side of the highway. So you discover what it is that makes you uniquely remarkable. You end up making an action plan so that you know how to run your company. But that action plan operates between guardrails.
That's right.
Not on a solid line in the middle of the road. So that as you start to get buffeted, by the winds and whatever of the marketplace, you can juke and jive.
That's right.
To accommodate for them, while knowing that you're staying inside the guardrails. So therefore, you are on strategy.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Tyson that says, everyone has a plan till they get hit in the mouth. And it's funny when we look at, sort of implementing strategies and plans. The military uses an idea called a command objective, which is like, take that bridge or take that hill, whatever the command objective is. And then they make a plan for how you're going to do that. And then but as soon as you make contact with the enemy, so they say, like,
it all falls apart.
That's right. And so as soon as you get hit in the mouth, your plan falls apart. But
yeah, I watched Band of Brothers.
Yeah, but if you've got that command objective, then you've got those guardrails, as you say, that guide you on, well, how do we pivot? Because we still know that's our objective. And that objective from, sort of who you are, because that helps sort of define where you're going. You said something else earlier that I definitely want to come back to. You talked about having the sign of, is it true? And so, a lot of our listeners are, in sort of B2B services, SaaS technology, and they're really sort of battling long sales cycles, complex buying committees, lots of stakeholders. And what we have seen time and again is that the biggest challenge for those types of businesses is credibility and trust. And the other thing that we see is that when you have a North Star, like these 7 words that defines who you are and where you're going, and then flows into how you're going to get there, it ensures that all of your messaging from, a marketing perspective, all the messaging that they encounter on the sales journey, even things that they get when they get reports, it's all consistent. And it's that consistency that builds that credibility and trust that is really sort of vital in the B2B space.
Part of consistency is keeping things tied together and related.
That's right.
So when John, this um, uh, retail shelving company.
Mhm.
When he used to go out and sell, right, he'd sit down and he'd say, we're a really great company because, we have the best people. This is all the generic cost of entry crap that every company does. We have the best people. We have the best training program. We've got a project management regimen that's the best in the industry. We've got this, we've got that, we've got the other. And the challenge with the traditional sales process, which is just, rhyming off a list of features and benefits, is that you lose control of the sales process. You don't realize it, but you've
That's right.
lost control of the sales process because the person sitting on the other side of the table is listening to this laundry list of features and benefits and trying to figure out, okay, how does this apply to me? And now they're interpreting your data. You don't want them interpreting your data. You just want it to register and for them to go, whoa, right. The moment they interpret your data, then you've lost control of the sales process. And so when John went out to sell post Blueprint, he leads with opening sooner. I'm going to make a tangent. Don't let me forget where I left off because I always do. When John is doing a sale, he's sitting in front of the VP of construction. So let's say the VP of construction at Home Depot. There's two things that person cares about at the end of the day: staying on budget, staying on time. Staying on budget, they're accountable to the CEO and the CFO.
Right.
Staying on time, they're accountable to the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the CMO, the store manager, and all the internal and external construction teams that have project management software terminating on that opening day.
That's right.
And if you've got to delay that opening day, that goes click, 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 click back through everybody's project management software. And now you've got hundreds or even thousands of people pissed off at you, not just two. So it's arguable that staying on time causes more gray hair for the VP of construction than staying on budget. And when you walk into that person's office and you say, we're all about opening sooner, go, oh. You can just feel the exhale of relief. Finally, somebody understands my business. Finally, they understand my job and my anxieties. Tell me more.
And it also, that positioning puts you into a category of one instead of, as you talked about before, competing on all of the long list of features and benefits that are really sort of points of parity in the marketplace that everyone has. And so if you don't have them, you're not even, it's table stakes. And there's an old phrase, you never win on parity, you win on differentiation.
For sure.
And so when they come in and talk about, we are opening sooner, that's difference. We're focused on the thing that we know is most important to you. And that creates a whole new category for this business rather than, competing on the benefits of the category of, isn't it nice to have someone that has all these things? Yeah, but everyone in the category has that.
It's cost of entry. So here's the reason you made a great statement. You become a category of one. And the reason that you become a category of one is when I said the VP of construction said, you understand me, you understand my job. You've demonstrated that, yeah, you really know their business and that what you said about opening sooner, they don't need an explanation of what that means.
Right.
They know, oh, I beat the opening day, therefore I'm a hero, and I generate revenue for the first time. I'm a double hero. They know that when they hear those two words. So now you have gripped them at a deep emotional level. And this is one of the criteria of that 7 words or less, is it has to resonate at a deep emotional level. So, like I said, that was the reaction of the VP of construction, right? Oh my God, that means it resonated at a deep emotional level. So, now, John, so he says, tell me more. He's leaning in. So John, now he's wearing opening sooner like a listening filter.
Right.
I'm wearing my ultimate benefit like a listening filter now. And then John says, we have a special process for hiring better people. And listening through it through the filter, oh, I get how that contributes to opening sooner.
That's
And
right.
we have a special training process that,
All
oh,
about
I get how that contributes to opening sooner. And we've designed our own project management software to manage your projects more efficiently. Oh, I get how that contributes to opening sooner. So all of a sudden, your worthless laundry list of features and benefits, they actually become proof points
that's right.
for opening sooner. So they get tied together. They are now not individual points about your business. They are a series of related proof points that prove that you can do what makes you uniquely remarkable.
That's right.
So when we always recommend, that's a big question when you're pitching against a bunch of other companies. Do you want to go first or do you want to go last? Traditional thinking says you go last. You want to leave the last impression, right? I say, no.
Essentially.
No. You go first because you want to poison the waters for everybody else.
Right.
And the way you poison the waters is you tell this substantive story that's rooted in this emotionally gripping thing that makes you uniquely remarkable.
That's
and now
right.
they're entranced. They're literally entranced. You make so much sense. They will say, I haven't heard this story before. It's an interesting story. And so here's how I say to my clients, you structure your process. You walk in, and the first thing you do is you say, here's what everybody else is going to tell you. And then you read off the features and benefits that, as you said, are cost of entry in the business. They're the generic offerings.
Right.
And you say, they're going to try and sell those to you as features and benefits, as things of value. They're just cost of entry, and you know it.
Right.
Right? We all have to do that before we walk in your door. Now, here's what I'm about. I'm about opening sooner. And blah, blah, blah. Here we go. We go on that ride.
That's right.
So,
well, yeah, and it also going first, and especially going first with that point of view, it shapes the criteria
absolutely
that the customer is now going to use to evaluate everyone else. So you've already sort of established that the speed of opening is the most important thing, which resonates with them because you've taken the time to understand their mindset. And so now they'll be looking through that lens of speed as they evaluate everyone else. No one else has taken the time to think about how their features and benefits support this objective of speed. And so you've got this cohesive sort of positioning where all of the aspects of your business support that. That's right.
Yeah. So, and by starting off the meeting by saying all this stuff is just cost of entry, when your competitors follow you in and they read from the cost of entry script, the people are going to be sitting there going,
yeah, everyone's got this.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, Ian told us he'd say this, and yeah, you're right. It's cost of entry. I don't want to pay extra for that.
That's right.
And none of them are saying any of the stuff that Ian's talking about. So yeah, you're gonna. So, and here's how effectively this works, right? And the point is, when I say how effectively, how important it is to get the right 7 words or less, and how when you do, that resonating at a deep emotional level works at the ground level. So John got a message through LinkedIn from this mid-level construction manager at Best Buy. And she said, do you mind coming out here to talk to us about your business? I was intrigued by opening sooner. And he said, sure, love to. So he goes out there, and he expected to be meeting with her and her boss, and to have to go through the process where you start in the middle and work your way up through a series of meetings, right?
Right.
He gets to Best Buy, and there's the entire executive team sitting in the boardroom waiting to hear from him. No suit, no nothing. Back in the day when you wore suits. So John tells his opening sooner story. There's a Q&A afterwards. And then he hears those words that everybody hates to hear at the end of the meeting, which is, thank you very much.
Right,
we'll get back.
We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch. And you know what that means. It means
don't call us. We'll call you.
Yeah, it means you'll never hear from us again. Or we'll give you a call 6 to 12 months down the road when we get our act in gear.
Right.
So John is at the airport to take the red eye back, and he gets a call at 10 o'clock at night from Best Buy. This is like the same night. And they said, we have an $800,000 store reno for you to do as a trial. And if you're successful at that, there's lots more business. And they still have Best Buy as a client to this day.
That's great.
But you've got to get the two words grabbed everybody, opening sooner. It was like, whoa, what's this story? I haven't heard this story before. So she reaches out on LinkedIn. And then when she is telling it secondhand, it's still compelling enough to get the entire senior management team into the room.
That's right.
And then it's a same day sale.
Well, and it goes back to that thing you talked about earlier, that, that 5% off thing of, if you're just a little bit off when you start, then, where you end is going to be really far off. And that's one of the things we see. Having really crisp positioning strategy can, 10x the impact of everything that you do in the marketplace. Like, he didn't have to buy a big ad campaign because he had a message that really resonated with the marketplace, that came from taking the time to really understand his customers, what they care about, understanding the individual personas of the buyers and what keeps them up at night, and then his company, how all his competition is positioning, and then his company's core benefits, which is, we happen to be faster. And so bringing all of that together into a really crisp positioning strategy that then makes everything that they do that much more powerful.
Right. Right. So I'll give you an example. So that's on the communication side. We talked about, you've got this 7 words or less, opening sooner. We've talked about how it's guided communications to a degree, the sales process. Here's something that, and this is, by the way, this is at its core, I think it's about 30 people in the business, and then they can bulk up as they need to. So this is not a big business, right? This is a traditional small business. So John presents the blueprint to his staff, and it's a 10-minute presentation. How long does it take to explain opening sooner, right? So, and at the end of the meeting, he says, so does anybody have any questions or comments? And this 22-year-old carpenter at the back of the room puts his hand up, and he says, well, if we're really going to be about this opening sooner thing, then we should have a space on our weekly timesheets where every week, every one of us is required to write in a suggestion for how we get finished faster. And it's like, okay, this is not rocket science, his suggestion. It's not an original thought. But what's really important here is this guy just heard sort of the new strategic context for the company. And he didn't say, oh, that's not my job. Oh, are we going to get paid extra for this? Oh, I don't understand what you mean. The first thing that came out of his mouth was building on the blueprint.
That's right.
He got it. And then he started coming up with suggestions, right? So then the receptionist, as we all know, receptionists are always way more than receptionists. Half the time they're the ones who are the de facto, chief operating officer.
That's right. That's right.
So she puts up her hand and she says, you know what? We do our RFPs, request for proposal. We submit them exactly the same way everybody else submits them, which is the last minute of the last day.
That's right.
And she said, from now on, and they all flow through her, right?
Right.
So she said, from now on, our new deadline is 3 days ahead of our clients. And we are going to submit every fully prepared proposal 3 days in advance of the deadline, because we want, as you said, the consistency.
That's right.
Everything we do to communicate that we're about getting finished faster. I loved that stuff.
That's amazing. And just as you say, that credibility and trust, you're telling a story both with your words and your actions that, then flows through the entire experience of working with that company. It's amazing. So this has been an amazing conversation, Ian. I know that our listeners have gained a lot from it. So if there's a company or a founder out there today who's like, yeah, I don't really know my 7 words, or I don't know my real crisp positioning, what's something they can do today to get started? And obviously the best thing to do would be to call you and to undergo the blueprint process. But let's say that they just want it, they believe in this, they want to get started. What's something they can do today within their company to start moving down this direction?
Okay. Are you familiar with Simon Sinek and his book Start With Why?
Yeah, start with why. Yeah.
Okay. So on my book, the guy who does the quote on my book says it picks up where Start With Why leaves off, because my 7 words or less and your why are the same thing. But when I pitched my book to his publishing company, the guy said to me, "What's the difference between your book and Simon's?" And I said, "Well, the why and the 7 words or less are the same, but he has no methodology to get there." And the guy said, "Yeah, you're right. No methodology." I was shocked. Anyway, but if you've ever seen his very first TED Talk, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's about 17 minutes long. And he explains in that where decisions are made in the brain. And it's not the cerebral cortex. When you hear the little voice in your head debating the pros and cons of something and then finally coming up with a decision, that's just a ruse. That's your cerebral cortex trying to figure out a decision that was already made in your limbic system, which is the feelings and emotions center, has no capacity for language. And that's why you often feel something, it feels intuitive, right?
Yep.
Or I just have this feeling. So you need to, in order to sell the most effectively, you need to speak into the feelings and emotions part of the brain, which is why I said earlier to you that 7 words or less has to resonate on a deep emotional level. Because when it does, you're talking into the right part of the brain. There is an emotional, your business has an emotional impact on your customers. And it has nothing to do with the shelving or the screws or, any of the facts and figures. And it all has to do with what's going on in the head and the heart of your buyer.
Yep.
So you need to fundamentally change how you think about what your value is. Because
so your takeaway would be for those founders to start thinking about what's the emotional change that happens in the mind of their customers that really connects with what the value they deliver. Is
that's
that
right.
Capturing it?
So whatever you think your value is, when you think about it the traditional way, then say, what's the emotional impact of that on the customer?
That's right.
Not, is this valuable to the customer? All those things that you think are valuable to the customer probably are.
Right.
You just don't know why. Until you ask yourself, what is the emotional impact of that valuable thing on the customer? And when you start delving into the emotional impact, and that's really hard, right? So remember when I said, I told you, or maybe I didn't tell you, a blueprint is 10 sessions of 2 hours each on Zoom.
Yep.
Well, it's like fully three of those 10 sessions, 4 of those 10 sessions that are used just to come up with the 7 words or less.
Yeah.
Because we have to dig deep emotionally. That's not a business conversation.
Yeah.
That's what is the emotional state? What is the emotional context of your customer? And with Home Depot, the emotional context of the customer is staying on time.
Right. Stress.
Relieving
that stress of the time crunch. That's right.
Yeah. We get you finished faster. What's the emotional benefit of that?
That's right.
My stress is relieved because I'm off the hook.
That's right. This has been a super awesome and engaging conversation. So many of the things you talked about, sort of those internal motivations and that sort of toward what they want versus away from, avoiding that stress. So interesting, so much more we could dive into. But unfortunately, we're kind of at the end of time. But if folks want to sort of continue to engage with you to learn more about building those 7 words for their business, how do they get in touch with you?
At my website, it's the number 7. I should actually have that down here in the corner rather than at Blueprint Business
We'll
Architect.
put that in the show notes for sure.
Awesome. Okay. So it's just my website. The number 7 words, as in, 7 words or less, 7words.biz.
Fantastic. Awesome, Ian. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us today. I know our audience will have gotten a lot out of it.
I thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you for joining this episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. We hope you've gained insights to grow your business. If you enjoyed this discussion, please rate, comment, like on your favorite platform, and share to others who will find it useful. Do you know a CEO, founder, or leader at an early stage B2B services, tech, or SaaS company who would like to be a guest and share their story? Send us a note. Let's schedule a conversation.